صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة أئذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم بالساهرة هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, everyone is well. Thank you all for joining us today at our live discussion circle. We'll be having a Q&A with Dr. Sayyed Rehan Naqvi, and we'll be focusing mainly on his lecture series. So we'll get straight into it with the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions so far, we'll start, inshallah. And I'll pass Imran over there, will pass the mic around. And also, sorry, I forgot to mention, we also have a Slido link. If you look over there, if you type in on slido.com on your Google or Safari, you can type in the hashtag and it'll come up with a list of questions that you can ask, or sorry, you'll ask the questions, and I can read them out from here if you want to remain anonymous. So without further ado, let's begin with a loud salawat. So maybe I can start, and maybe I'll ask the first question, just to kick things off a bit. So you talk about a postmodern world. When people, if you know the youth nowadays, it's very, very difficult for us to, I guess, find our way in this world, especially with all the influence that's out there. And, you know, it can be quite hard, especially when you go to different schools, different environments, different societies, and then you go to mosque as well. But how do you maintain that balance, like a healthy balance, if that makes sense? I'm not sorry.
So if I understand it correctly, basically the question is how we maintain a balance between our religious or spiritual life and our worldly life. And because you said we go to live in the society, go to school, go to work, and there are influences. So the thing is, the purpose of our spirituality and religion is not only to limit our religion or our faith within the four walls of Husseiniya or mosque. So when we are at work or when we are at school, we still have to keep God in view. So your question is very broad. So the thing is, I'm trying to understand it. You know, it's if you could elaborate a little bit more, give some examples. Yeah, because I struggle to understand. I can give a ready-made answer, but it would be interesting to, you know, understand your question.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is, like, you know, when if we go, especially like the youth nowadays, they'll go to school. They'll have different influences there.
What kind of influences?
It could really range on anything. I think it also is gender-based as well. Depends on what you're kind of exposed to. But it's also finding, I think I've had this with some, like I teach a madrasa, so some kids will come up to me and ask this as well, is that they're kind of confused with what's right, what's wrong, in terms of how do we know this influence is bad, how do we know this influence is good, and they get mixed up with their mosque influences, but also their school, Western society influences. So it's sort of trying to understand how to know what's right or wrong, and how to like get out of that Western mindset. And these are kids asking me this, so it's quite advanced. I don't know how they're thinking like that, but yeah, it's a very broad question. But I just thought of it, and I thought, why not ask?
Yeah. So, yeah, or as broad as it is, well, we have this religion, we have our Quran, we have the Ahlul Bayt, we get all those teachings at the mosque. And I can totally understand that there is this pressure where our youth find themselves between a hard surface and a rock, because what we learn at the mosque can be sometimes drastically different from what we learn at school or at work or in society in general. The values can be very different, but then there are many things that we have in common. The common good in the society, like things like being an upright person, being an honest person, being truthful. Those things are common, and they are Islamic values. So no one is going to teach you at school to be unjust, or tell a lie, or steal, or do those things. Now, their definition of justice can be different. For example, they might find it injustice not to give certain people the right to make certain life choices or live a certain kind of life, which in their point of view is injustice. But in our religion, without being explicit, but according to our belief, that life choice in itself is injustice. And that's where we have these conflicts. And we just have to live with that. I think we simply have to live with that. Just like in some countries, like in Pakistan, Shia Muslims have beliefs for home and beliefs for school. Yeah? Beliefs for home and beliefs for school. So the kids are indoctrinated at home that so and so and so person were bad, but you're not supposed to say that at school. And the similar situation we face here. This is how we have to live. I think we have to instead, it may sound a bit counterproductive, but I think instead of fighting the system or things happening, because we are a minority within a minority, we can't fight it. We simply have to have practices in place to deal with it. We have to accept that these things are being taught, these influences are coming, but we have our shields, our barriers, our practices. And if I may use the word indoctrination, which has a negative connotation, but we have to indoctrinate ourselves and our children at home. If I hope it makes sense what I said. It made sense. Right. It's just a broad question, so yeah.
Thank you very much. We have a question over there, Maitham.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I don't think this is working, so I'll just speak loudly. Yesterday you spoke about, on the journey to kind of self-discovery, one of the first steps is that introspection and trying to understand our own, underlying beliefs is the term that you used.
Yes.
Now that's a fairly challenging concept because I guess the assumption is that we're, in some ways, deceiving ourselves internally. So we have a certain conceived notion of who we are and what we believe in, etc. But I guess your suggestion was that maybe there's something beyond that surface level analysis of ourselves that we might be hiding to ourselves even.
Yeah.
So I
yes.
guess practically, how can we, in that exercise, actually understand, what components of the things that we see when we look into ourselves are truly the truth versus things that we're just telling ourselves?
Yes. Very, very good question. And it's, as I said, it's a long process and it requires a lot of introspection and self-analysis. And we don't have time for that nowadays. The problem is we are so busy in everything, the pressures of this life, postmodern life or modern life, whatever you call it. You have to commute for an hour, you have to go to work, you again commute for an hour, you have bills to pay, you have this, that on top of that, you have social media, you have entertainment, you have children, you have family. There is no time for it, and it seems like this is a luxury problem. This is for those people who sit in monasteries and they have no work to do. But we have to make time for it. So first of all, we have to make time for it. Quite some time in introspection. We need to be quiet. And after that, it can be trial and error. Trial and error. We have to see, okay, did I really do this thing for God? And the nafs can deceive us. Yes. Yes, you did it for God. Because you did not want anyone to see that you were doing this good thing. Like you were saying prayers in the mosque and you thought, okay, I don't want people to think that I'm very pious. I'm giving a very simple example. You don't want people to think that you are pious and therefore you do not prolong your prostration. And you think, I have done a good job. I'm happy I've done something. But in the very doing of that, you are actually thinking about people. So you have to take this next step and think, oh, well, I shouldn't really think about people. So next time you prolong your sajda, and then you think, now people are not thinking about me. Now I am not thinking about people. Well, you're still thinking about people. You're thinking that you're not thinking about people. You see how complicated it can be? All of us go through this for years. But in the end, you have to just accept it, that this is how it is. And I'm giving only one example of showing off, for example. And then Ayatollah Bahjat used to say, kill riyakari with riyakari. Kill the show off with show off. What does that mean? That you show it off to God. You say, I'm showing it off to God. I'm doing beautiful sujood and everything for God. And then you can somehow get over these thoughts. So there can be certain symptoms or certain signs that will tell you that, okay, I'm on the right path. But it might be a false signal as well. So you would have to, again, reassess and reappraisal of your choices and practices, I think. Thanks.
So we actually have a question that came in on the Slido. So the question is, how do I know I have mental health issues? What are the ways I can identify if I have one, as you mentioned that many people are in a state of denial?
This is a tough one because I'm not an expert in psychology. So I can only give a very general, sort of general knowledge-based answer. But as I said, if I started with this slightly provocative story, and I said we are all crazy. And I meant it, to be honest, because, as I said, we all have, excuse me. And as radical as it sounds, what I said, I actually believe it, that, we have tendencies, we're prone to have despair, negative thoughts, and guessing, trying to read other people's minds. Everybody does that. Isn't that a mental health issue? It's everything that affects our well-being and steals the joy out of life and steals the peace is a mental health issue. As I said, someone has less intensity, someone has more intensity, someone has much more intensity of mental health issues. Now, if it depends how you feel, they say that if your thoughts start to interfere with your daily life, and you can't perform the functions, you can't work, you can't focus, or you stop doing things that you used to enjoy, or used to do, even food and sports and things, then you have a serious mental health issue. Now, if you have feelings that are only uncomforting thoughts, then maybe you also have a mental health issue, but not very serious, because you're still performing quite well, or what they call high functioning disorders and stuff sometimes. Again, I want to really steer clear of, I don't want to talk about these terms and like an expert, because I'm not. But if you feel like it's really interfering with your life, then you have an issue. And you should seek help. And I think it's always good to get it checked out and go to an expert. There is no shame. Sometimes the surgery invites people for a medical checkup. You are perfectly healthy. They just invite you for a medical checkup so that they want to see maybe there is some underlying condition. So you can go to an expert and say, this is how I feel. Can you speak to me? Can you tell me what's happening with me? Do I have an issue? And it's perfectly all right. And they will say, no, it's just a little bit negative thoughts and stuff, or it's serious.
So seek help.
Yeah, seek help is the answer. Just take your mental health very seriously, because I know people, as I also mentioned in the lecture, I know someone, they took a very wrong decision in their careers when getting married. People can make wrong decisions in general, but sometimes when you have a mental health issue, you take impulsive decisions, you don't know what you are thinking, what you really want, and you take wrong decisions. And then down the road you realize, oh, you were depressed at that time when you took that decision. And then it's too late. So that's why I say take your mental health very, very seriously. As soon as you start having these thoughts, you think, oh, I might have something, go and seek help. Do not delay it.
So are there any other questions? Perfect. Okay, we have another question over here.
In a postmodern world, many people challenge a higher being. So my question is, why does Allah, the All-Knowing, create someone who will sin and burn in the hellfire, even though he was aware that that was their outcome? Would Allah create some people just so that they go to Jahannam?
This is a very, very nice question, and probably the toughest of all. In the postmodern world, yes, there is no higher being. Even in the modern world, in Europe, as I discussed yesterday, it was science that replaced God pretty much. So science became the new God in a way. But in a postmodern world, yeah, there is no higher being. And those who do not believe in God, they are going to stick to their point of view. Now, I don't know how the first thing is linked. So these are two questions? Or so you say that why Allah created people knowing that they were going to commit sins. So the thing is that, as I said yesterday, I used a colloquial word that we are all thought of God or thoughts of God. It's not like Allah had to think first and see, okay, I'm gonna see how these people are gonna behave, and then I will take a decision whether I create them or not. Because there is a fallacy there, philosophically speaking. He cannot do that. That first he imagines a person. Let's assume that Allah imagines a person and then imagines that how this person is going to live, and then sees that this person is going to be a bad person. And then Allah says, okay, I imagined him and he's bad, so I'm not going to create him. It doesn't work like that. He doesn't work like that. In his ilm, right from the very beginning, everything is there. It's there. He creates. He doesn't have to think first and analyze something and then create. So he has created everything on the basis of that ilm. If I could make my point clear, it's like, let me think about some example. Because he does not need any external information. He does not need. Right from the beginning, everything that is supposed to occur and supposed to exist has always been present in his ilm. Yes?
If Allah only created good people, there wouldn't be much like there wouldn't be much the world must be balanced. There mustn't be just good because then Allah has already perfected us. He just wants us to he just is giving us a test. He just doesn't want to give the answer start. He wants everyone to learn the answer themselves.
Yes, that's a very beautiful comment. He said that Allah wants us to go through a test and find the answers ourselves. And that was very beautiful. I really like that. So such a beautiful thing to say. Yeah, so then he created everything, not imagining. So the question is not really precise or correct, that why did he create someone if he knew that he was going to be a bad? Because as I said, it's not like that he had to first imagine and judge. Everything was just there. It was just in his ilm that it has to be like this. It has to be. Now after that, it's up to, in that very ilm at that time, knowledge, it was also the principle in his ilm that everybody he's going to give the free will to take life choices and do things. That is his will, that everyone has a free will. And that was also right from the very beginning in his knowledge. So he doesn't have to change anything. It's a slightly philosophical and difficult question. So if I could recap, right from the very beginning, Allah knew what was going to happen. It was going to be like that. Everybody was going to be created like that. And then everybody was to be created with a free will. And that's why everybody has to go through a test and learn the lessons and get the answers themselves. Thank you. Long answer to a short question. Very typical.
Did that help you?
Good.
Do any of the ladies have any questions so far? No, that's fine. We also have quite a few questions on the Slido. So, So yesterday's lecture, you spoke about being lost. So if one is lost, what would you say is the first step to finding your way back again?
What's the first step?
Yeah, like the first step to get there.
First, we have to see what is being lost and how lost one is. So if someone is lost in such a way that one has completely stopped going to the mosque, has no connection with the society, and he or she, they are on the verge of pretty much losing the faith, and but they're aware of the fact that they're lost, but they want to continue being lost, then there is no discussion. But there is someone who, no matter whether they have been going to the mosque or not, or connected to the community or not, they're aware of the fact that they are lost, and they want to get back on track. So that person can get back on track. And the first step is what I said yesterday, keeping the hereafter in view. Start and the end. It's always this. If you want to go back, you have to do some reflection. How long am I going to live? What am I doing here? Sooner or later, this life is going to come to an end. These are the first. Keeping the end or destination in sight could be a good way to start the journey, because you know the destination or end, so then it becomes easy to take the first step in that direction. So the thought of the hereafter and temporary world, the temporary nature of this world and this life could be a good way to start the journey.
It's not a good answer. I like that answer. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, we have a question over here.
Assalamu alaikum. Today, at the beginning of the majlis, you said that as a starting point, the Ahlul Bayt, the infallibles, prophets, imams, they can't suffer from mental health issues because they have the perfection of knowledge. So at least some, from what I understand, some mental health issues are to do with hormone imbalances and issues like this, which is why they're often treated with medication. So I don't understand why, in the same way that the Prophet could, for example, have a physical injury, a physical illness, that would temporarily incapacitate him, why a prophet or an infallible couldn't have a mental health illness. And even when we kind of look back at the history, sometimes you see things, and maybe there's a better explanation that I've not understood. But for example, when Prophet Yusuf disappeared and his father cried so much that he went blind, or when the Prophet passed away and Bibi Fatima alayhi salam cried so much that she had a special house made for her. So when you see these kind of instances of what we would kind of term this is someone who's going through depression, I don't necessarily personally see it as like a flaw or something that would be unbefitting of an infallible. In fact, it almost makes them more relatable. And this is the point, that they're not angels, they're just like you and I, and therefore they can suffer from the same things as you and I could.
Right. A very, very good question, brilliant question. And first we have to understand the infallible people or perfect human beings. What are they? They are human beings like us. They have a nafs, they have a body, they're flesh and bones, and they have emotions. They have human emotions. And their emotions and feelings are much stronger than ours. All their quwwatu nafs, like all the powers of the nafs, the thinking power, and their anger and love and hate, everything is much more intense than ours. So this is what the ulama have established. That's why when they love, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, for example, he sent Ali al-Akbar to the battlefield, then he was really sad as a father. He was deeply sad. He was going to miss his son. Lady Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, heard crying for her father, is very deep, because the Holy Prophet said, she is a part of me. A part of me. She simply could not exist without the Holy Prophet. She had to pass away eventually, in a way. It would be very hard for her if she lived for 60, 70, if she was not martyred. It would be very difficult for her to be separated from her father. This is like the Gnostic dimension of it. So when she cries and all that, she has that emotion which is very strong, very, very strong. Yaqub alayhi salam as well. Extremely strong emotion of love. But while they were, if I may use, depressed, which they were not in my point of view, did they forget Allah? Did they have feelings of despair and hopelessness? Did they become bitter? Did they become angry and started beating up their children and other people for no reason? Did they not pray properly? Did they not perform the daily functions? They did all that. They did all that. And mental health issues are those that interfere with your daily work or give you the feelings of emptiness, hopelessness, despair, negativity. They didn't have any of that. Yes, they cried. They missed the Holy Prophet. They missed Yusuf. They missed Ali al-Akbar. They did all that, but did not have anger for God. Did not have any how you call it, misgivings and grievances about God's decision. In that sense, they never had that. They said, "Ridan bi ridaihi wa tasliman li amrihi," absolutely submitting to the will of God. Yes, I am sad. Like the Imam, I'm saying, yes, he's sad. And in the very being sad, he's still content. Still content. Have a contentment. That's the difference. They just express their emotions. The Holy Prophet used to remember Lady Khadija, peace be upon her, for the rest of his life, and would cry and remember her because of that feeling, that love. So that's the answer. They have emotions. Yes?
Can I make a comment? I want to make a comment on that one. Once you finish.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Are you finished?
Yeah, that was pretty much. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you for that. You know what you've just said is good. So the way I look at it is because the Prophet and all the prophets are role models for us. Okay? So if I can put it in a sort of from my perspective, what we should do is we should use that and say, yes. In fact, the Quran talks about the Prophet being sad, being called Majnoon. And Allah says, don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. If you read the Quran, it's amazing. You know that, right? So what does that teach us? What does that give us? That gives us that, look, at the end of the day, we can reach that level. Okay? The example of the Prophet in his early life, especially his early life, before he went to Medina, how many there were? 60, 80 converts over a period of whatever, and how they were tortured, and he was struggling. And in the Quran it says, they used to call him Majnoon. They even, 3 years they boycotted him, right? Right? They boycotted him. So the way we should explain it is that they are human and they should be role models and we should follow them. You see, the word infallible sometimes creates what is the word I'm looking for? An idea that we can never attain that. No, they were infallible as a role model. Okay, and we should then encourage that we can do that as well. My 2 cents worth.
Well, yes and no, because infallible is Isma is a different concept, and I don't want to get into that discussion at the moment. But you have a point that we should not present them as something that they are not like humans. I said they have human emotions. But infallibility is a concept. You see, the Prophet. Yes, please.
You said something, I heard you, and maybe I didn't hear you properly. You said that they cannot have depression or something because they're infallible. Was that correct?
Yes, they can't have.
Yeah.
They can't have the depression, like clinical depression we talk about.
But that implies that somehow they're exempt from, it can be interpreted in 2 ways. You take that statement that they have extra special protection. Yes, despite their own effort, because Allah gave them the potential. But it has to be it's a nuanced thing, and we leave it at that.
Yeah, the thing is, especially when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt, every rijs is away from them, according to the Quran. And every confusion, every uncertainty, and also in particular the prophets, because they have to receive the news from God. And if someone says that, okay, they can have mental health issues, how do you know they're not being schizophrenic? How do you know? So that is very, very important. As soon as we open that door, who knows which verses came from shaitan, which verses, God forbid. So that's why it is very important to establish that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Do any of the ladies have any questions? Yeah, there's one.
Which books? Yes, because I'm a fan of Allama Tabatabai, and he has written some really, really great books. And I always recommend 2 books. One is Shia in Islam, and one is Quran in Islam. Shia and the Quran. Quran and the Shia. Isn't it like that? Yeah. So these 2, and they're not very lengthy. They are very, very good books, in my point of view. To learn about the basics, learn about the Quran, developing the understanding of the Quran and the principles to understand the Quran, and also about our basic aqaid. And then there is another book, those who are interested in spirituality and spiritual development, and a little bit of gnosis and irfan. There's this book, Light Within Me, and that has 3 parts. And it's a very good book, and especially the second part that is based on Allama Tabatabai's lectures that Ayatollah Mushtahidi Tehrani wrote a whole Risalatul Ulul Albab, Suluk fi Suluki Ulul Albab, Risalatul Lubbul Lubab fi Suluki Ulul Albab. And it's a very, very good book. And I think all of this is found in English on al-islam.org. So I highly recommend these 3 books.
I think it's available in bookshop.
Oh, is it here? Okay, yeah, Hujjat, so of course, yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much. There was another question, I think. Yeah, just.
Mm-hmm. Shit. No, thanks, sister. And you put it very eloquently. So it was a good, it was an enlightening question slash remark, and depicting the picture the way it is. And so, if I could break it down into a few subsections of your comment or question. First of all, the world. So the first thing, it's everywhere. I hear this more often than not, Western world, Western world. I think this is no longer valid because of the IT and because of the technology and because of everything we know. This IT revolution and social media and AI and all that has rendered geographical boundaries pretty much insignificant. So this we have to really... Now, I am not taking anything away from the Muslim societies. When you hear the adhan 5 times and there is the whole culture and everything, it's very nice. And it's good to live in those societies. But we also see that, unfortunately, that I wouldn't say that all Muslim countries are bad or everything over there is bad, but we see that, and there are many reasons for that, the deterioration of the social fabric of the society and the values, the decline of values. It can be sanctions, it can be financial problems, it can be many things. But yes, it's not heading in the right direction. A lot of frustration among the youth over there as well, over here as well, and it's becoming more and more same sort of problems that the young people in all different parts of the world face, like atheism, these postmodern thoughts, no overarching truth, no grand narrative. And definitely we have to change our ways, because first, in my point of view, first of all, you can't impose religion on anyone in this world. We have seen in certain societies and countries, they try to impose religion and it backfired. And there is a Pakistani Sunni journalist slash political commentator. He says something very interesting. He said that by implementing Sharia, you create munafiqs. And that he might have a wrong motivation to say that, but there is some truth in it. Implementing means by enforcing forcefully. People become hypocrites, and the same happens to children. You force them to do things, they will do things in front of your eyes, but you don't know what they do in their privacy at school. So this is doomed to fail. You must culture is doomed to fail. I have no doubt in my mind. And it has had terrible repercussions in families. I have seen strict fathers forcing their daughters to wear hijab, and they would wear sort of chador or whatever. As soon as they got onto the school bus, college bus, gone. So this is no religion. This is no, and I'm giving the example of girls' hijab because it's the easy one, obvious one, and the same for boys and guys. You can't force anything. So then what do we have to do is that we have to become friends with our children. We have to become really, really friends so that they don't feel judged and they don't hide things from us. In previous generations, people were so afraid of their parents, they hid things from their parents. If I may complete, and then inshallah. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, but it was like that, but still, mashallah, you turned out to be good. And, no, because the times were different as well back then. There were not so many temptations and so much sin, at your fingertips. Times were different. So now the times are very, very different. So we have to become friends. Do not impose religion on your children. This is my request. You will make them averse to religion. They will run away, God forbid. And even if they're not very practicing, especially when they're not baligh yet, do not force them. Do not force them. Yes, please. You want to say something? Oh, okay. All right. So that's it. Became a bit long answer. Still, I have to break it down further. So you said friends, no imposing, and discuss. And I always give the example of Luqman. Luqman in the Quran, we have the Surah Luqman, and Luqman spoke to his son, and he says, "Ya bunayya." He said, "Ya bunayya," very beautiful word. He said, "My dear little son." He didn't say, "Son, come here, I have something important to speak to you. Son, listen to me." Bunayya, the Quran is precise. Bunayya means my little son, my dear little son, come here. And then he started speaking to him about Allah, about shirk. And I always say in different congregations and sittings, we need to have tea together. We need to have afternoon tea, dinners, and sit and openly talk about Allah to children. Talk about shirk. Luqman, Allah has put these things, these examples for a reason. Talk about Allah, start from there. And speak to them the importance of religion, listen to their dilemmas. The most important thing is they should not feel that they are going to be judged. That's the most important thing. Most important thing. And inshallah, and as I say, we have to indoctrinate them. Let them speak their mind. They should not feel ashamed to discuss any topic with you. Any topic. That's very important. Because we have this shame culture. And this shame, one thing is haya and one thing is silly shame culture. Haya is one thing which is extremely important. Haya. how do you say, yeah, the thing is to translate haya into English is a difficult task, modesty and so, but you understand the concept of haya. But that should be maintained, but they should be open and willing to discuss any subject with you. And about the pulpit, that would be a good start. Now, about the pulpits and mosques, now, alhamdulillah, they are functioning well, I would say, but it also depends which community, and because it's so diverse, we are so diverse, and there are certain communities where they don't have a resident alim or they don't have a properly functioning Sunday school. But mashallah, this community, I always say that this community is a role model for other communities. Other communities should follow this. But of course, there's always room for improvement. So I think that things are happening, good things are happening in Islamic centers and from the pulpits. But one thing that I really think that needs to change, not change, but I mean that needs to be implemented or brought in, is a dialogue instead of monologue. But for all too long, we sit on the pulpit, and I'm again speaking for a long time, but we speak and tell you do this, but it has to be a dialogue, and more people have to be involved, and so that they speak up, they speak their mind, they discuss their dilemmas in an environment in which no one feels judged by their peers or by the one who's conducting the session, the Maulana or the host like yourself. Building a trust. I think this is very important. We cannot learn anything in depth. This is my personal understanding. We cannot learn anything in proper depth unless it is a two-way communication. You want to learn things in really depth, it has to be questions and answers and dilemmas and confusions. They have to be discussed. From the majlises, we give just key messages and some points and here and there, and that's it. So that's something I think should be made a regular thing in different organizations, a dialogue. And the third thing is just pray to Allah. And these du'as that the Imams have said, like ثَبِّتْ قَلْبِي عَلَى دِينِكَ in the end of times, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub, ثَبِّتْ قَلْبِي عَلَى دِينِكَ. These kind of du'as have impact. Keep praying to Allah that, oh Allah, keep us on the right path. And there are prayers. So I can tell you about one particular prayer that I have. I haven't seen it in any book, but I've learned it from an ustad. Not directly, but I saw it in a video. It's a prayer that parents should say for their children, for their safety, the safety of their iman and all that. It's between Maghrib and Isha, 2 rakat prayers, and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has taught that prayer. 2 rakat prayer, just like Fajr, like to Nafil, just that in the first rakat after Fatiha you recite Suratul Qadr, and in the second rakat after Fatiha you recite Suratul Kawthar. And just say that between Maghrib and Isha. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Kareem, and just say it. And this Ustad was saying that he recites it, and he recites it for the children of his friends as well. And he's an authentic Iranian Ustad. So I think these things help. These things really help.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sayyid, thank you so much for your lecture today. You know, when I hear about like mental health issues, I was just curious to the extent you mean when you say like get help and ask professionals for advice, because of course, especially in outside of Islamic teachers and preachers, therapy is advised heavily and discussing your problems. But how come we're not told to use the skill set that God has given us, such as develop tawakkul, or trust in God with small anxieties? What's the extent to which we should use this skill set, and when should we outsource these to therapists and stuff? the Islamic stance on that thing?
Wonderful. Yeah. Good question. Yes, of course. I wish I had expanded a little bit more on the last part of my lecture about aqaid and its role in mental health and all that. Thank you for this question. So I get the opportunity. So tawakkul and all those things, that is related to our fundamental beliefs, basically. Definitely, we need to use that, and it helps. It really helps. But again, as I said, if someone is having a severe form of mental health issue, it's not gonna have any effect on them. The more you tell them, the more they're gonna hate you and the religion. It happens. There's someone who told me, and his wife had some issue. She was very practicing Muslim and good person, and when she had those good episodes, she would wear hijab and prayers and munajat and everything. When she had those bad episodes, she would take off hijab and go to work just like that. Can you imagine someone who wears hijab daily and takes really care? Hate religion, hate her husband, hate everything. I don't know what kind of issue she had, but she had some serious issue. In that phase, if he's going to say, you are not a good Muslim, oh, do tawakkul, she's going to curse you because she's going through that phase. In that phase, it's just not going to help. So get medication, look for the right time, and then tell people about tawakkul and God and all that when they're calm.
What for lay people who don't have like illnesses as such? Just like normal anxiety.
Normal anxiety, aqaid help. Normal anxiety everyone has nowadays. Sometimes I see, even myself, I have several majlises lined up, and I have bills to pay, and I have this and that. I have this travel and that travel. I have to get my car fixed. All the things happening at the same time, and I start to become stressed, to be honest. And if I live under stress for a very Shaykhuna, you know what I'm talking about. You travel, you're traveling, and you're working all the time, it seems. If I live under this stress continuously, I'm going to become irritable, I'm going to become negative, you will say something to me, I'll lash out at you. It will happen if I don't control my nafs. So I have to do what? I have to try and have a more... have a calendar or schedule and follow that, implement these changes in my life, and also, aqaid, and think about akhlaq of the Holy Prophet, think about the akhirah. It helps. What I could not include in my lecture today, again, because, it became too many things, either Allah lies or He tells the truth. If He lies, then let's close the shop and go home. But if he does not lie and he tells the truth, so he has said, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." Indeed, with the remembrance of Allah, hearts find tranquility. And Allah Tabatabai tells us that the only way to find itminan and peace is through remembrance of Allah. Which means the true peace comes from there. Which means first get the medication, and then go to the dhikr of Allah. Those who have that intense sort of. But if you don't have that intense, alhamdulillah, most of us, none of us has that. So then, dhikr of Allah. Then he says, shifa'ul lima fi sudur. The Quran is shifa'ul lima fi sudur. So explicit. It is cure for what is in the chests, hearts. Metaphor for mental health, right? For the mind or whatever you call it. Nafs, whatever. He says that. So it is a shifa'ul lima fi sudur, but not just by uttering it, but reflecting on those words, tawakkul and all that. I really appreciate that you asked this question, so it complements my speech. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Any from the lady side? Let's have a look at the Slido, actually. We have quite a few questions on there.
Oh, yeah.
So, There's one just here. Okay. This question actually links to, my first question, the broad one, but this is more nailed down to an example. So this person is asking, in terms of, the corporate world and meetings and businesses, there comes a time where you have to meet the clients. And sometimes it's a very big client and you have to make a sale or a pitch, and they might choose a restaurant of their choice, and then you'll have to go to that restaurant, wherever it may be, and they could be serving alcohol. And obviously the clients aren't all Muslim, so they'll be getting whatever alcohol they have, and you're a Muslim, and this is a
They're
big...
all Muslim?
No, they're not Muslim.
No,
and
I wouldn't be surprised.
no, so then they're probably getting alcohol, and you're a Muslim, and you have to go and sit on the same table, pitch, and it's awkward because your own beliefs. So in that situation, what do you do? This is the question, basically.
Okay. So if you don't judge me, and I don't know, it's going live?
I believe so.
It's okay.
It's live streamed, yes.
Oh, it's okay. Allah is Kareem. Allah is Rahim, but people don't forgive. But I will share this personal anecdote. If you don't judge me, so I'm very strict on this. I just don't go to the places, Jule board and stuff like that, like Christmas parties and stuff. I just don't. I was in Houston a couple of months ago, and the guy I worked for, American guy, he had come from Chicago. Anyway, long story. He said, we worked in the daytime. He said, let's go for dinner in the evening. Now, I knew that they will choose a restaurant, it'll be wine and stuff. So I said right away to him, so I don't appreciate sitting in an environment where alcohol is being served. I said it right away to him. I don't like to sit in an environment where alcohol is being served. Or in an alcoholic environment, something like that, I said. He said, oh, don't worry, it will be only me drinking, and you don't have to drink in something. I said, okay, now I can't really go on and on. Let's be very practical. I've said it, and I thought what to do. Luckily, we could choose where to go. And he asked, where you want to go? I said, yeah, let's go near the hotel. There's this pizzeria. So at pizzeria, usually they definitely don't have wines and liquor and stuff. So, and probably they don't have beer and stuff. I just assumed, and we went there. And when I went there was nothing. They had pork and stuff, of course, but they didn't have any beer or anything. And I said, Alhamdulillah. So, no, but just wait. So then we go there, and then the guy, let's call him my boss, he comes, and then he says, oh, so there's that, vegetarian pizza, blah, blah, this, that, everything. I say, happy, no fizzy drinks. And then he starts looking in the freezer and say, aha! There is a Corona or whatever, some sort of some beer or something. He said, oh, I found one. Now, what can I do now? Go and grab it from his hand and say, no, I'm going back? I can't do that. So I said, okay, what will I do? Well, we are not sitting on a table. We're sort of a standing high sort of table type thing. I go as far as possible, quickly eat my pizza, and I say, call it a day, I'm going home. Allah will forgive me, hopefully. I'm being very open. I'm being very open, and it's going live, whatever. This is what happened. I couldn't escape it. It would be very awkward. I said to Allah, Allah, I tried everything. I have so much anxiety. I have a gorilla on my back all the time because of this. And I tried everything, oh Allah, but it turned out to be this. Please forgive me. And I'm not sitting close to him, and I don't want to be close to someone. I can't tolerate the smell. And I was like, he was there, and there was another guy, and they were speaking, and I was just here. and I just left. But the next day he said, the way at dinner, I said, let's go to Bijan restaurant, the Persian. Bijan, in Houston. I said, it's a halal, I want to go to halal. He said, let's go there. And I knew there was no alcohol there. So we went there, we had halal dinner, no alcohol. Then he said, there was another guy with us. He said, now we are going to the pub, you want to join? I said, no, man, I'm going up to sleep. So it was, but you can't escape sometimes. And I have said it as a fiqh is one thing, try your best. If you can't escape it, I'm not giving fatwa, follow your marja, ask Sheikh Anwar, ask other shuyukh. I'm not in a position to give any, I'm sharing my personal experiences. This is how I deal with it, because your issues and my issues, we have the same problem. And I'm just saying that. I'm not saying you should do it. Don't sit at a table where alcohol is being served. But I have been in a situation and I couldn't escape it, and may Allah forgive me. Please pray for me as well.
Thank you for your openness.
Yeah, I mean.
Does anyone have any other questions? We have time for a few more. Yes. The mic will come.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Now, this life at the moment is becoming more complicated, especially for the youngsters. Now, as you said that you can escape the hard drinks and everything. You are in the plane. Next to you is somebody who is drinking too much, and the people who are serving you is also touching the bottles, and then they are giving you water or whatever you want.
Offering, yeah.
This is one, and the other places where you have to go in a meeting or company meeting, which is unsocial. They tell you that if you are not joining us, so what can you do in this circumstance? The best thing is just avoid yourself, but be in the company. So you are in it, because in the good old days when we were going in a meeting in the evening, we only have a drink, orange or something, while they were having whiskey or something like that. But we were still there because they are going to talk about the subject of business and everything. If you avoid, you will not be able to participate there. And that is bread and butter of yours.
I totally understand that. Thanks for the plain comment. I forgot that I was actually going to give Muharram lecture series. I think I was going to give Muharram lecture series or coming back from Muharram, and someone sitting next to me on the plane was drinking red wine. He was always asking, red wine, please. I said, why? And that smell was killing me. And it's Canada. I had to go to Toronto. It was a long journey, and we can't avoid it. We can't avoid it. Just imagine going to Muharram and someone drinking wine next to me. And but that's halat idtirar, istarar. It's like, or how do you call it? I hope I pronounced it correctly. So you can't avoid it. You're just sitting there. It's not your choice. You didn't sit on that seat by choice. You didn't choose a companion, a fellow passenger who was going to drink wine. So be it. We can't do anything about it. Allah is Rahim. What was the second thing? About the parties and stuff and the thing? It's forbidden. All Maraji say it's forbidden. And but you see, we have been in those positions. I have been in those business meetings before, not now, before, long time ago. But my personal point of view is that I wouldn't go now. I wouldn't go. And I would. The good thing about postmodernism is that there are some good things about it as well. The acceptance. The acceptance. You can be whatever, so I can be whatever. You can be very open about it and say, no, I just don't want. They will accept it, they will tolerate it, but okay, you might hurt your chances at work. That's another story. But then Allah will reward you in the hereafter. Yeah, if you want to become a CEO, well, the Prime Minister of Britain doesn't drink. He has never drunk alcohol. But he has been to parties probably where people drink alcohol for networking and stuff. But he hasn't drunk himself, ever. So
You can get by without alcohol.
you can get by, but yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But thank you.
We do have time for just one last question. So if anyone has anything that's burning, please go ahead. Uncle.
May I share a
Please,
comment,
Shaykhana.
reflection?
Yeah, please, please.
You see, in a postmodern world, there was an incident of very, very recent event, a global event. Everyone knows about it, called Qatar World Cup. And you can talk about what happened before and what was during it and what was after, and how it was perceived in the Eastern versus the Western world, which maybe the world came together. Maybe. Why did I mention this example? Because it was an acceptance that others have different viewpoints. For example, we spoke about, or the question about alcohol came up, and it was not allowed to consume alcohol. But then in a postmodern society, well, surely that is their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that is okay. There was one little comment that actually things are accepted. So that was your point, which I wanted to just touch on.
Very good point, yeah.
The other thing which is beautiful in the human nature, it's the consistency. If you have put your principle forward in the beginning, they know, oh, this Fatima or Muhammad or Ali are such that that is how they are. And nowadays, people reach very high positions, even though they are principle-based. I just wanted to say, in our community, we have people who have reached the highest positions.
MashaAllah.
And they have principle-based. So I just wanted to, if somebody views or listens, there are also examples of people who are hotshots and amazing places they've reached, and Allah has provided for them.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Thank you. That was a very good comment. If you stick to your principles, Allah is going to help you, and people have, like in your community, like Shaykhana said, we have examples. Thank you for your comment. Very, very important and apt.
So, unfortunately, we have come to an end to the Q&A. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your openness. And that was really insightful. I really enjoyed. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Inshallah, you all benefited. We'll end with ziyarat. So if everyone can stand for ziyarat.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن الرسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولى وابن مولى، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض توس، الرضا المجتبى راضي بالقدر والقضاء، السلام عليك يا سلطان العرب والعجم علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا فاطمة المعصومة اشفعي لنا في الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان عجل الله فرجك، وسهل الله مخرجك وزهورك. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.